If you've listened to Dare to Resist, the first book in the Parallel World series, or read it, you're familiar with Morgan and her kind of obsession with chocolate chip cookies. Well, I kind of based that on myself. I really love chocolate chip cookies, so I thought it would be fun to show you the recipe that I use, which would be the recipe that Morgan uses. And I'll put the recipe also down in the description so that you can try it out if it looks good to you. Now, one thing I want to mention is if you've listened to the entire Dare to Resist audiobook or read that book, you know that what's happening now, she's not going to have any chocolate chip cookies for a while, which will be really hard for her. So if you haven't read or listened to Dare to Resist, you might want to check it out. But let's go ahead and get started. To start with, we want to preheat the oven to 375 degrees. And then what I do is I use 1 cup of shortening, and I like to buy these sticks because it makes life a lot easier. And then we use 1/3 cup softened butter or margarine, and I just use margarine, and these sticks show where 1/3 cup is, so it makes it really easy to just cut that off. And then I just soften it in the microwave. And dump that in. Sometimes it's a little bit melty, but that's all right. Next, we're going to use 3/4 cup white sugar and brown sugar. Lightly pack the brown sugar. Dump that in, and then cream it. Until the consistency is about like this. 2 teaspoons of vanilla, and I just use imitation vanilla. Some people like pure vanilla, but I think that's a little bit strong. And one very important ingredient is I use fake eggs because that way I can eat the cookie dough without worrying about salmonella. There was one time I made cake batter and I used real eggs, and of course I licked the beaters, and I had a kind of an upset stomach for a few days after that. So I just go with the fake eggs, and then I'm safe and I can eat the cookie dough because I like the cookie dough. So I use 1/2 cup, which is equal to 2 eggs, or you can use 2 eggs if you prefer. And pour that in, and then mix that up. Now it's a consistency now. Then we will do 1 teaspoon salt and 1 teaspoon baking soda. This is the salt. Baking soda, and mix that up. And then I like to add 1 cup of oatmeal just to give it a little more consistent, let's see, a little more texture. And I use the old-fashioned oats because they're larger. So just 1 cup, and then mix that. And then 3 cups of flour. I just scoop it right in. I just kind of just shake it in loosely because I actually end up adding more than 3 cups. So I don't worry about it being sifted or anything. And then mix that up. So you can see what the consistency looks like. Sometimes I like it just a little bit more firm because I don't like my cookies to spread out on the cookie sheet. So I'm gonna add just a little bit more flour. Maybe that's 1/4 cup. So that's what that looks like. Finally, the most important part, and the part that was a challenge for Morgan, because chocolate chips aren't necessarily easily available in her world, or rather in the parallel world where she finds herself. So having chocolate chips is a real treat for her. But I add about 2.5 cups. I'd like to have chocolate chips in each cookie, so I add a little bit more than most people probably add. And then mix that up. So now, as you see, it holds together really well, which is a consistency that I prefer because then it doesn't really spread out on the cookie sheet. I'm still waiting for my oven to heat up because my oven's kind of slow. So what I'd like to do is put parchment paper on my cookie sheet so that it's easier to clean up. So I have a couple cookie sheets so I can just keep swapping the cookies in and out and I don't have dead time in my oven. Now years ago, I bought this meatballer, but I only use it for cookie dough. And some people say my cookies are kind of small, but that's the size I like to do, so I'll do about that much. and I can fit 15 on one cookie sheet. All right, then I bake it for about 9.5 minutes. I just keep an eye on it and see how brown I want it to be. Some people in my family like it a little more golden. I like mine a little more crisp. So you could do it however long works for your oven and your likes. Okay, looks like that first batch is done. Let's take a look. Looks good. They baked more like 10 to 10.5 minutes because I like them a little more golden brown. But if you like your cookies a little bit more gooey, you can do it a little bit shorter. It also depends on the oven, as you probably know. We'll let these cool for a few minutes and then we'll put them on our cooling racks to cool completely. All right, I let them cool a few minutes. Let's put them on the cooling rack. Since these are kind of small, I think the next batch I'll do some larger cookies. It's kind of fun to play with that. You just have to bake them longer. These are gonna be pretty big. My family will like that. I kind of smash them down because as big as they are, I don't know that the inside would get cooked enough otherwise. All right, so the larger cookies are done. They are quite a bit larger than the first ones. Let's go ahead and put those on the cooling rack so they can cool completely. I would say that Morgan's younger brothers, Zach and Brandon, would much prefer these large cookies over these little ones because they really like the cookies. Because in their world, they really don't get to have goodies very much. I don't know if I could survive very well in the world that Morgan finds herself in because I definitely have a sweet tooth. And then the best part of all is to have a freshly baked cookie dunked into a glass of ice cold milk. Delicious. One thing I forgot to mention is to kind of tell you what Dare to Resist is all about in the Parallel World series. So it's about Morgan, a 16-year-old girl who gets into a fight with a bully and gets suspended, and then she runs away. The next day, when she comes home, another family is living in her house and they say they've lived there for weeks. Well, of course, that's a bit startling to her. And as time goes on, she comes to realize that she's living in a parallel world. A world where it's illegal to be overweight. And if people are over their government-approved weight, they are sent to fat centers. FAT stands for Federally Assisted Thinning. So it's a world that frowns upon chocolate chip cookies and other goodies. So that's kind of rough for her. If you haven't seen the book trailer that I created, make sure and check that out. I'll put a link down in the description. It's kind of fun. And if you haven't started listening to the audiobook for Dare to Resist, make sure and check that out. There are 5 books in this series. Dare to Resist is the first one. All 5 are completed, and the audiobook version of those books will be coming. It takes a little time to create, but they will be coming. But anyway, I hope that you enjoyed learning how to create Morgan's chocolate chip cookie recipe. That's my favorite chocolate chip cookie recipe. If you try it, if you make it at home, let me know how they turn out. Thank you for watching.